Hi, everybody. This is Advocate Lucinda, your empowerment lawyer. I had a number of you to ask me questions about witnesses, in particular, how to certify or qualify a witness. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at the three witnesses: the character witness, the expert witness, and the lay witness. We're going to look at their role and how they're certified. And I'm also going to make a distinction to civil trials and criminal trials. So let's get started. So the first witness is the character witness. So let's look at the role of the character witness. The character witness will testify about the individual's positive character traits like honesty, humility, selflessness, loyalty, patience, empathy. Also, the witness should have good character himself or herself, right? Now you're probably saying, why did she say that? That's just common sense. Well, you would think so. Let me tell you a story, a real story. I knew an individual who was incarcerated in prison, had been in prison for a while, and he appeared before the judge to try to get his sentence cut. And he brought in a character witness, and the character witness himself did not have good character. The judge knew it, the community knew it, everybody knew it. Well, it did not help the incarcerated person. In fact, I think it might have even hurt him. The point is, make sure that your witness has good character. Regarding certification, a character witness doesn't need special qualifications like a degree or certification. They should know the individual well enough to be able to provide evidence of good character, such as a teacher, pastor, co-worker, neighbors, or anyone else who has interacted with the individual enough to speak honestly about who they are. Now, I have an old saying: if by the time you need the witness to testify on your behalf, you've got to vet them, you probably want to pass. So let's look at some distinctions between character evidence and how it's treated in the civil trial and in the criminal trial. In the civil trial, character evidence is generally inadmissible to prove that someone acted in a certain way, but it can be admitted if character is an essential element of a claim, charge, or defense, or if a party puts character at issue. So let me give you an example of this inadmissible evidence. For example, evidence that a friend is a good driver as evidence she was driving carefully and was not negligent on the day of the car accident is inadmissible. In a criminal trial, generally, the defendant can introduce evidence of their own good character to demonstrate their character for the specific trait relevant to the crime. The prosecution cannot generally introduce evidence of the defendant's character to prove that they acted in conformity with that character. Now, after a defendant introduces character evidence in a criminal trial, the prosecution is typically allowed to offer evidence to rebut that evidence. So you can read Federal Rules of Evidence 404. And also Federal Rules of Evidence 405 and Federal Rules of Evidence 608 are related to character witnesses.
The defense in the Kaufman County murder trial presented more character witnesses today. For the first time, we are hearing from people who still consider Eric Williams to be their friend. One of those witnesses, Tamara Moss, says she dated Williams in high school and her family has kept in touch with him. The defense displayed photos of Moss and Williams together at a high school prom and at Texas A&M football games. Moss testified that she does not believe Williams is guilty, even though he has been convicted of murdering Cynthia McClelland. Williams is also charged with murdering District Attorney Mike McClelland and prosecutor Mark Hasse. Moss said that even though she and Williams broke up years ago, she still trusts him.
He never expressed anger or resentment or anything toward me, and continued to come over to my family's home. I would trust him with my kids. I would trust him to stay with my current family now.
So let's look at the expert witness. An expert witness's primary role is to provide specialized knowledge and opinions to assist the court, judge, or jury in understanding complex or technical issues in a legal case. They help the court understand specialized data and information that may not be within the common understanding of lay people. The expert witness's certification is established by the court based on the expert's qualifications and experience in a particular field. This is typically done through a process called voir dire, where the witness's expertise is examined by both the attorney presenting them and the opposing attorney. So here is a good read on how to qualify an expert. So I am going to leave a link in the description page of this video so that you can download this material. The expert's testimony is used more broadly in civil trials. Their testimony involves areas like accounting, engineering, medicine, accident reconstruction, toxic tort. They explain complex issues, provide expert opinions, help the jury understand the case, and help establish who is liable and the amount of damages sustained. In a criminal trial, the expert witness focuses on complex forensic evidence, for example, like DNA, fingerprints, analysis of ballistics, digital evidence, and footwear impressions. The expert interprets the evidence and ultimately assists in determining the defendant's guilt or innocence. And you can read Federal Rules of Evidence 702. Also, Federal Rules of Evidence 703 and 705 are also related to expert witnesses.
Thank you. And if you could begin, let's make sure the microphone is pointed towards you a little bit. There we go. If you could begin by giving us your full name, spelling each of your names.
Barry Vance Broad, B-A-R-R-Y, V-A-N-C-E, B-R-O-D-D.
Mr. Nelson.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Broad.
Afternoon.
Are you currently employed?
I am.
And where are you so employed?
I'm self-employed as I own a consulting company, BVB and Associates.
And what areas do you consult in?
Police practices and use of force.
All right. Now, did you have a career as a police officer prior to starting your company?
I did.
Can you, for the jury, please describe generally your education that you received in order to become a police officer?
So I have a bachelor's degree in law enforcement from George Mason University, which is in Fairfax, Virginia. I have a California Community College teaching credential from San Francisco State University, and I'm a graduate of the Labor Management Relations Program at University of California at Davis.
Okay. And did you serve as a licensed police officer in various capacities?
I did.
When did you start your law enforcement career?
So when I graduated college, I was a seasonal police officer in Ocean City, Maryland. Then I was a deputy sheriff for 6 months with the Arlington County Sheriff's Office in Arlington, Virginia, assigned to the custody division. Then I was hired by the United States Park Police, which is a law enforcement branch of the Department of Interior.
Is that a federal law enforcement agency?
That is a federal law enforcement agency.
Okay.
And I started my career with the Park Police in Washington, D.C., and then I was transferred to San Francisco field office in 1977. Then I went on loan to a undercover drug task force in Marin County, California, and then I went to Santa Rosa Police Department in 1982.
And how long were you with the Santa Rosa Police Department then?
22 years. I had 29 years total law enforcement experience.
All right. In your capacity as a police officer, do you have any specialized training or experience?
I did.
And what is that?
So I had special assignments as with the Park Police. I was certified by the FBI as a defensive tactics instructor in 1978. I started teaching in the Santa Rosa Public Safety Training Center, and I also taught law enforcement rangers throughout the western region of the National Park Service.
Can you explain what defensive tactics is generally?
So when you look at the topic of use of force, that could include handcuffing, hands-on techniques, baton techniques, handcuffing, pain compliance, and under the use of force umbrella, there's also firearms, but I focused almost entirely on the defensive tactics portion of use of force.
And so you testified that you taught defensive tactics at, you called it the, I believe, the Regional Training Center?
It is a regional academy, but the official name is the Santa Rosa Public Safety Training Center.
Can you describe what that is?
So a recruit police officer would attend the training center for their California Post Basic Academy certification. National Park Service Rangers also attended that academy. Corrections officers attend that academy, probation officers, and there's also a EMS component. Firefighters go to that academy, and it also services in-service training.
In-service is training for licensed officers?
Yes.
To meet their continuing education credits?
Yes.
And how long did you teach there?
35 years.
In the use of force always?
Yes, in addition to other topics.
What were the other topics that you trained?
Weapons laws, interview and interrogation techniques, collision scene preservation, verbal judo, tactical communication skills, or some of the others.
What's verbal judo?
So it is actually Dr. George Thompson developed the program shortly after the Rodney King incident, thinking that police officers needed better tools to communicate with people. So verbal judo created an outline on how an officer who would make a traffic stop could use verbal skills to overcome a person's potential noncompliance.
So let's look at the lay witness. The lay witness or fact witness is a person who testifies about their personal knowledge or observations related to a case. Their role is to relay factual information that they directly perceived, such as what they saw, heard, or touched. Certifying a lay witness involves demonstrating their qualifications and ensuring their testimony is helpful by 1, establishing their firsthand knowledge to what they will testify to, 2, that their opinion is not based on speculation or hearsay, and 3, but it is not based on specialized knowledge.
Back to the night of November, evening of November 21st, 2021. What did you do that day?
Well, that day I was preparing my daughter to march in the parade with her dance troupe. Watched football earlier in the day and got her dressed, and we had to change our plans last minute because my son was not feeling well. So it was just my daughter and I that went to the parade.
And do you recall what time you arrived at the parade?
It was at least an hour before the start time of the parade.
And do you recall where you were positioned at in the parade?
I moved with the dance troupe, so I
kind of going with the flow.
Correct.
And at some point, you observed something happening. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Do you recall what that was?
Well, after my daughter had finished and I was walking back to our vehicle to go home, I noticed as we were approaching White Rock, which is what we were parked off of, I noticed a vehicle coming through where the parade participants were going. It was a red vehicle. It was honking its horn. It passed a few parade entries on the right-hand side, and then it passed between two of the groups. It veered to the left and went around the next group on the left-hand side, at which point a police officer attempted to approach the vehicle. That police officer had reached for the door handle, and at the time of that approach, the vehicle started to speed off.
I just want to back up just a little bit. You stated that you heard the vehicle honking its horn.
While it was on White Rock Avenue, it was honking its horn.
In your opinion, did the vehicle appear to try to avoid hitting people?
At that point, yes.
And you made reference to it the vehicle coming in contact with an officer. Did you see where the vehicle went after that interaction with the officer?
There was no contact between the officer and the vehicle. The vehicle attempted to make contact. The officer attempted to make contact. But after that attempt, the vehicle sped southward. You know, I know those streets don't run straight north-south on Main Street.
Did you notice the vehicle strike anyone at that time?
I did not.
And what did you do after you saw the vehicle? Once it was out of your view.
Once it was out of my view, I grabbed my daughter and walked as fast as I could to my car.
And to the best of your recollection, how would you describe the vehicle as far as make and model? To the best of your recollection.
To the best of my recollection today, I only remember a red SUV.
I trust this was helpful to you. And as always, I'm Advocate Lucinda, and we will see you next time. Take care.